Goedemiddag, welkom op onze persconferentie. De voertaal voor de voorstelling van onze twee meest recente aanwinsten zal Engels zijn, want met Archie Brown hebben we natuurlijk de vierde Engelsman in onze clubgeschiedenis aan boord gehaald. En voor onze Israëliër Omri Gandelman is het ook in het Engels te doen. En uiteraard ook voor Samuel Cardenas, onze hoofdscout, die vandaag ook van de partij is. So your questions in English, please, starting with who you want.
Good afternoon, Archie. Welcome in Ghent. But first of all, can you tell us something more about your reasons to join Ghent and how it builds up in your career plan? Because you had already quite a particular career for an English player.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of one of the early ones in the generation of young English players who are kind of branching outside of England, and it's something that I'm so happy that I've done so early in my career rather than later, because I just think it's made me mature as a person, as a player, and more from a football perspective. I think there's so many benefits to playing overseas outside of my hometown, you know, and so much different eyes from all over the rest of Europe who are watching Ghent. So I just think it's the perfect place for me to develop my football. I had some good conversations with the coaches and everybody else around the club about their plans for me, the projects of the club. And yeah, just out of all of the different people that I spoke to here at Ghent, I just had the best feeling, you know. From the first conversations that I had a really good feeling with the club. So that's kind of why.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us something more about how special it is for an English young player to look for the adventure abroad? Because it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, no, I think it's you have to be a certain type of person to be able to jump outside of your comfort zone. I think in England we're kind of a bit restricted, you know. We're not really too big on learning languages, and we kind of like to stay in our comfort zone. So for me personally to leave home, I left home at quite a young age anyway. I'm from Birmingham, but I went to play at Derby at quite a young age, so I kind of got used to being away from my family and stuff. So I think for me it was just a little bit different in the sense of I had to learn a new language, a new culture and stuff, but it was a challenge that I always kind of wanted to take on, and always kind of want to push myself and see how quickly I can adapt, you know. So it wasn't really too much for me personally. I've really enjoyed it so far.
Hi Archie, can you tell us a bit about your debut game on Sunday as well? Because the coach said at his press conference that you actually weren't too happy about your first half, but we actually had the feeling that it was pretty good. But how do you feel about it?
I mean, there was definitely some positives to take from the game. Nobody wants to go 2-0 down. It wasn't the ideal way to start the match or my start here at the club, but I think it's still a case of learning to adapt to the team. You know, the guys was away playing in Europe last week, so I didn't have so much time with the team to learn them, learn me. But I think as time goes on, you know, once the people who I'm playing with, they start to understand my game, I start to understand theirs. And I think we could see that in the second half, you know, a lot of the times I was running, I was getting on the ball more often. We changed formation, which also helped a bit. You know, we started to move the ball better. We started to get into areas where we could penetrate them, and I started to get into areas on the ball where I could have more impact and effect on the game. But I think there's definitely things that I could have cleaned up, especially in the first half, you know, just taking care of the ball a bit better. But I'd like to think in the second half I showed the fans and everyone watching a bit more of what I'm about as a player. So I think, I'm probably my biggest critic, to be honest. So whereas you guys probably think it was all right, I'm always looking at the negatives because it's the only way that I'm going to improve as a player. So it was a taste, but, you know, there's a lot more to come.
Archie, was it due to your position in the second half? You were looking more comfortable?
I wouldn't necessarily say it was position, because to be honest, I'm comfortable anywhere along the left side, be it left centre back, left back, as a wing back. So I think just as a team, we started moving the ball a bit more freely. We started to figure them out a bit more. We was playing with more urgency in the second half, which helped a lot. So I think then the byproduct of that was we had the ball in better positions. We could penetrate them higher up the pitch, and naturally I was playing higher up, so I started to get the ball in more areas where I can affect the game, because there's only so much I can do from a defensive position. So it was a bit of a mix of things, but I think the change of formation did help a little bit. Yeah.
Did you have other options than Ghent?
What was that? Sorry.
Did you have other options than Ghent?
Yeah. There was some options, but it's always noise, to be honest. I was taught from a young age to try and block out the noise, because if you're not the type of person that can deal with it in the right way, it can distract you, take you away from your focus. And once I came back off my holidays after I finished the last season, I was fully focused on just where I was and performing, because I was still for the first 3 games of the season in Switzerland at Lausanne. So I think, there was definitely a lot of options. But as I said, as soon as I got to have a conversation with all of the people at Ghent, and I got a feeling of the club and their plans for me, my mind was set.
A question for Samuel. You found Archie in 2nd division Switzerland. How do you see that kind of level is big enough for Ghent, or high enough?
Well, I think the level in Switzerland, the 2nd division, is decent, to be honest. There's some good teams, like the one where he was at. I think it's a decent team, even here in 1st division. I think they can play. But the level doesn't matter. In the end, it's about the player, right? And not where he plays. And I think with Archie, we have a player who has a lot of qualities, and that we saw. And I think you also saw it on our last match day, that it can go pretty quick and translate pretty quickly into our league.
What qualities stood out for you?
I think the first thing is we wanted the player on the left side who has a physicality, who has speed, and I think that's really his biggest strength. It's really an athlete. And then the next thing, of course, is I think in the final third he has qualities. He has, despite his size and height, he has dynamics. He can dribble a man. He can. I think he has a very good cross, especially with the left foot. But even with the right, he can do it. So it's quite a complete player, I think. To play on the wing back position in our system, it's a very good fit. I think he can also help out as a centre back. But in terms of the wing back, I think that will probably be the main position where we see him.
Archie, in an article of, I think, The Athletic, I read that you like boxing and basketball as well. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I mean, I used to box when I was quite young. Probably when I started playing football around 4 or 5. I was quite an energetic kid, so my dad, he threw me in at a young time to kind of burn some of that off. And yeah, basketball, NFL, I like a whole lot of stuff, yeah.
And do you yourself like to box in your free time, for example, or?
I don't have so much free time these days, so not really. But it's more just from a training aspect, If I can take some of the stuff, and maybe in the off season I do a few things, but fighting not so much now.
Maybe a question for Omri as well. Could you present yourself as a player, because we've already seen you play some minutes, but except that we don't really know you as a player. So could you present yourself?
Yeah, I'm 23 years old, come from Israel, play also in the national team, play as a center midfielder, but also can play as a center back. I'm left-footed. I think my strength is that I can play box to box, run a lot, very intensity, and good with the head. That's it.
And maybe you don't know, but your father was a basketball player, eh?
Yeah.
Talking about basketball. And his grandfather too.
Yeah, it's a family of basketball, but in the end I chose to stay with the soccer and just to watch a lot of basketball. I love this game, but I chose another way.
Good afternoon, Omri. Ghent has quite a tradition of Israeli players. Did you get in touch with one of them, of those guys, and especially with who, and what was their opinion on joining Ghent at this time in your career?
Yeah, you had a lot of Israeli guys here in Ghent, and actually I talked with Rami Gershon, that play here I think 3 years, and in Belgium 8 years, and he told me just good things about this lab, about these people, that I will be very enjoy here, and the city is very good, and of course this is a place that I can develop myself as a player, and this is also my target that when I come here, and I hope that Rami did it very great years here, win champions, and I hope that I will be the honor also to do it.
Last summer, you were very successful with the national team of Israel, U23. How do you look back at that experience? And most of all, was it for you the confirmation of the fact that you needed to get the next step in a European, in a bigger league?
Yeah, first of all, it was a huge thing in Israel. This competition, the Euro, we went until the semi-final. We did a very amazing tournament, and of course, that after the tournament, it was the target to do for me. It was the target to do the next stage of my career, and. When I talked with the people here, and of course that I saw the team on TV, and the league, saw that it's a very tough league with very good football and very high tempo. So I thought that this is the right choice to come here.
Omri, I saw that you also have the Portuguese nationality. How come actually? Does your mother or father have roots in Portugal, or?
Actually, no, it's from my mother's side, but I don't talk so much Portuguese or something like this. It's more just the passport. Yeah.
Okay, maybe a question for Samuel as well. What could you tell us about Omri? Was scouting, for example, also behind his transfer, as was the case for Archie?
So with Omri, we were looking for a physical type on the number 6, for a guy with height, with someone who has a good header, and who can bring us a little bit something that we don't have. So in this case, it's a profile that fits. He has a good physicality. I think it's someone that pops up quite often in the opponent's box with a good header, can be dangerous there, can cover a lot of meters. But okay, in the end, it's a transfer from Hein 100%.
For both of them, Samuel, what are the main objectives for them in this first season here in Ghent? What do they need to pick up to really become a key player for this club?
I think the question is best asked to the coach. I think with both of them, it's a club decision. It's a decision also of the coach to work with them and who believes in them, and he needs to, I think, answer that question to you better than I can.
Omri, could you tell us how important the coach was then for you to convince you to come to Ghent?
Again, sorry?
Could you tell us how important the coach was for you to convince you to sign at this club?
When I talk with Ghent, so also I heard from the coaches very believe in me, and that he know me very well. And when someone talk with you like this, and they show you how he wants you, and what is his plan for you, so it's of course as a player it's very nice to hear. And when I saw also talk with another people, like I said, Rami to example, and hear just good things about this club and saw the football that they play in this league, so of course I thought this is the right choice to come here and develop as a player and do my next stage in my career.
Omri, where did you pick up English? Because a lot of your countrymen who came here were not always able to talk English that easily when they just came here.
I was a good student in school, and actually also I was play 1 year in the youth in Germany, but so I need to communication in some way. But I think from school, I was a good student. So.
And where did you play in Germany?
SV Wien for 1 year now.
Samuel, the fact that you say that it's a transfer from the coach, what does that say on your position on the transfer?
I think it was clear now what I meant.
Okay. And is that the way the club is working at the moment?
Yeah, I can't comment that here. I think we have done enough transfers where it was not the case, and it's a normal way that the coach gets a transfer that he wants or a player that he wants. I think it happens in every club. So I don't think it's anything unusual in this regard.
Next week, the big countries and their transfer market. Still a lot can happen. How difficult is it for you to keep on having alternatives for maybe one of the strikers if they would leave, seeing that possible targets may also have been transferred already?
Yeah, it's normal, huh? In the end of the window, that a lot of targets we had, let's say at the start or even over the last week, is all going to make a transfer. If it's a good player, he's going to make a transfer. Most of the cases, and we're not the only club in our level looking at players, especially strikers. I think that market is very, very saturated. But nevertheless, of course, my job is to be prepared now for whatever happens, and that's all I can really say about the situation. We will see in the next 1 week or 2 weeks what is going to happen.
So you're still prepared?
Of course, I have to now.
Okay, no more questions. Then I thank you very much. Also thank you to Omri, Archie and Samuel for attending this press conference.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you.